It's John Adams. John, how are you, sir?
Hey, Dave, thanks for the intro. But to be fair, I'm probably bigger than Knoxville now.
You've out you've outgrown the city, huh? What about the region?
No, I can't outgrow this town. It's growing like crazy. Cooper Mays and I do have something in common. I played eighth grade center on our school's flag football team, and we ran the same plays that the varsity did. So I know whom to block rather on a power sweep.
John, you played center. Does that mean your quarterback was like what, 78 pounds?
He was we had a small school, as Class B school in Louisiana. He was actually the first midget to play football there in our area. Yeah, he was very, very tiny person.
Very, very nice. All right, let's go ahead and get to today's tough question, and it's brought to you by Zen Sports. Today's tough question is right now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Given this latest commitment, John, do you feel like Tennessee is at the Alabama-Georgia level of recruiting right now, August the 22nd? You've got an Arian Carter, which I know that either school would have taken in last year's class. You've now got Jordan Ross. I think anybody would have taken Ethan Davis. So that's just a couple that come to the top of my head quickly. But is Tennessee at Alabama and Georgia's level in recruiting right now?
No, not at all. I mean, it's got some really nice recruits. Josh Heupel's recruiting well, headed for another top 10 class. But Georgia and Alabama are right at the top or near the top. They've been doing that for a while. They stack one great class on top of another. And for Alabama or Georgia to get a recruit like that, it's nice, but it's routine. For Tennessee, it's a big deal.
So what does it take to get at that level? Consistently picking up those guys? How long until we say Tennessee's like the 90s and the early 2000s, where they're as good at recruiting as anybody else in the nation? At what point do you cross that threshold?
I'm not sure. I mean, and for one thing, Georgia has a great in-state recruiting base that Tennessee doesn't have. Alabama does too. Tennessee's recruiting base is getting better simply because Tennessee is more heavily populated now, and so is the Knoxville area, especially Nashville is. So, but I just think it's going to take a while, and I also think you need to have that championship credibility. Josh Heupel is doing great things, has Tennessee going in the right direction, but he hadn't won an SEC championship, hadn't won an SEC East championship. I think that would have to come first.
So let me ask you this. Josh Heupel, we know, is a great scheme coach and a great offensive coach. Does Tennessee have to beat Alabama and Georgia in recruiting in order to have success against those schools and to eventually better those schools on a regular basis?
No, I don't think so. I think Josh Heupel has the best offense going in college football. If he can keep duplicating that season after season, yeah, he can win with that. We've seen teams, you go back and look in the last 10 years, there have been teams that won and didn't have the top rated recruiting classes. But I think that gives Tennessee an edge. And I think people recognize that. I think that's why Tennessee is ranked 10 in one poll and 12 in the other, despite significant losses, because people are really beginning to believe that Josh Heupel is something special as an offensive coordinator and his system is something special. So, yeah, you could. I mean, look what happened last season. Tennessee beat Alabama. It hadn't recruited as well as Alabama, but it beat it on the field. And if not for the South Carolina defeat, Tennessee was headed for the playoff. So, no, it doesn't have to recruit at that level to compete for a championship.
John, funny enough, I know you mentioned Nashville. There's a running gag on the show that Dave knows that I talk about. If you really track recruiting, I think Nashville recruits, even as it gets bigger, because there's so many Northerners coming in, the high school football is still very overrated in that city. But with one of the things with Tennessee is the NIL is such a big advantage for Tennessee over other schools. So do you think, I know you said you don't think that they have to recruit on the level of Alabama, Georgia, but if Josh Heupel continues to have this success, do you think that combined with NIL will allow them to have the success on the level of Alabama and Georgia, even though they're not in as talent rich of an area?
I think it can win a championship. But when you start talking about having success of Alabama, you're talking about one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the sport. Nick Saban's won 6 national championships there, won another one at LSU, and Georgia's won back-to-back national championship, going for a third in a row, which nobody's done since the 1930s. So I can't say any team is going to have that kind of success. And also you have to consider Nick Saban's arguably the greatest college football coach of all time.
With Tennessee picking Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I actually meant, do you think they could get to a point where they have recruiting success on the level of Alabama?
Oh, I'm sorry, Caleb. I misunderstood that. It's hard to say that now. Tennessee has always recruited nationally. I think the advantage Alabama and Georgia have is really talented players in state, but they also recruit nationally. So to me, they have a built-in edge, but that changes when coaches change. Kirby Smart's a terrific recruiter. And of course, Nick Saban is. So that's not to say at some point when coaches change that Tennessee could hang in there with them, with those coaches. To me, all the attributes you can have as a program, NIL, solid recruiting base within your state or within your area, still, the great coach surpasses everything. The very best coach can win anywhere. And so that maybe Josh Heupel will become that. It's too early to say that now.
He is John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel. One aspect of Tennessee's football recruiting we haven't got into yet, and I want to address that because I think it's a bigger factor than a lot of people realize. And it's brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sports, what you see is what you get. And with their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash for a welcome bonus. Earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with promo code HOOKED. That's right, HOOKED. Unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting and keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. And refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports, bringing the cash back to Tennessee. If you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. This reads really well for a Tennessee fan that says, oh, I love my program. And I love the fact that they got this recruit, Jordan Ross, for instance. But one of the things that I think that we gloss over sometime is the family atmosphere that Josh Heupel has promoted. I think players feel comfortable on campus. At the end of the day, John, you and I both know that it's in this order now. NIL, can you get me ready for the NFL? And can I win championships? But somewhere in there below that is the family type of atmosphere. And I think that's really significant. I do.
Yeah. And that speaks again to having the best coaches. Best coaches understand that. We've heard on and on about changing a culture, having a great culture. Well, that's nothing more than relationships. It's just become sort of a buzzword in football, changing the culture. But no, you're right. I think at the very best programs at Alabama and Georgia, I think the players feel it's probably like a family. I think it's with the best programs, you're always going to hear that. You know recruiting, how many times have you heard, well, when I went to that particular school, I just felt more comfortable, and I felt like everybody was family there. Well, I guess you can kind of create that environment in most places, but you have to really go through it and go through it day to day. It's one thing to feel like it's family and recruiting, but to go through it day to day, that's different. And I think that's what Josh Heupel's done. I think the players genuinely like him as a coach, and that helps.
No, I couldn't put it better myself. I completely disagree. I do love the changing culture thing. It's kind of like, oh, we're going to start eating with our hands, or we're going to have tea in the afternoon, like we're in England, or like, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, respectively. The changing culture is just about being a good person. If an AD says we're going to change the culture, it means the last coach was a jackwagon.
Yeah, and you always want the last coach to seem like a jackwagon, because that means better days are surely ahead. Do you think Jeremy Pruitt? Well, he's an exception. I don't know if he ever mentioned culture. That the two don't really go together well. But you're right. It's just I can remember Lou Holtz when he was at South Carolina. I think it was maybe 3 years in, and he was still talking about changing the culture. Well, if you haven't changed it by that point, and he had some good seasons, I'm not knocking his track record there, but it was just an odd thing to say. And you hear it, I think you hear it less now because people understand the immediacy of college football. You don't hear as much about, you never hear rebuilding. That's like a dirty word now to say, yeah, we're rebuilding. No, because that implies a long time frame. Nobody wants to hear that. But I think if you're a coach who treats players well, treats them with respect, and helps them get better at their craft, and gives them confidence when they go on the field, they are well prepared. I think then you have a really good culture.
Yes, you do. And they win. That certainly helps.